Emma, thanks for joining us. So Emma's a fourth year majoring in civil and environmental engineering. She leaves tomorrow for Cape Canaveral and her NASA internship, and she's supposed to graduate in May. But she did experience a pandemic year, the first in memory at Case, and agreed to share it with us and answer your questions. So I'll start. Emma, tell us, what's it like going to college in a time of COVID? Set the scene for us, if you will. What's your living situation? How do you go to class? How do you eat?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you for that great introduction. So I'm currently living on campus in one of the dorms on the north side of campus. I'm only living here, as Steve said, for one other day, which is why my wall is so barren right now. I'm not very homey, but I've been living here since August, and my current living situation, I live with one other person. I have a roommate. However, we're living in a 4-person apartment, and it's at about half capacity right now so that the students are more spread out for COVID reasons. So that's about it on the living situation. I'm actually not on the meal plan right now. So I have a car on campus and I get all of my groceries at Walmart and Target and places like that. But when I do order food from campus, it's all ordered through a Grubhub app, and it's all, you order it ahead of time and you pick it up at a little table where they have all the orders just waiting for you, and you're not allowed to stay and eat it. It's all takeaway food. You have to find either a place outside if the weather is nice, or you have to take it back to your dorm and eat it there. And then class-wise, all of my classes are online. I don't meet in person for any of my classes right now, which is kind of a bummer. There are some people who do have in-person classes, but having been at this since March, I think I'm pretty used to the online format right now.
I don't see the hand raise function here on my screen. If folks with a question, wave your hand or maybe just ask it.
Hey Emma, so I'm curious, has there been, we all hear about the distancing and the, no interaction. Has there been any function whatsoever where there have been a communal group of students together, obviously distance and masked and all that, but has there been anything that you could say where a group of students have really gotten together in some sort of social function?
Yeah, so I guess 2 parts to this. One is just things that students are doing on their own. From what I can understand, students are doing to sort of hang out with each other is as much as they can hanging out outside. That's what we've been encouraged to do. We say that's a little more difficult now because the weather's getting colder, but we're also all going home. So in private, hanging out outside as much as possible. We were all provided lawn chairs at the beginning of the year, so it's much easier to put your lawn chairs in a circle and sit and just chat with your friends. But on the university's end, I feel like they've done a really good job of providing any sort of events that they can at a safe distance. So for example, there's a weekly bingo night that's held in Twing that's very spread out. Everybody's required to wear a mask. I've been 2 or 3 times already because it's one of the few things that is happening on campus where you can feel like you're interacting with just normal students. But it's a lot of fun. There's some really good prizes there. There's also been smaller things that clubs have been doing. I went to a gingerbread house building activity where it was half virtual, half in person. So anybody from anywhere could log on virtually. But then since I was on campus, I got to attend in person, and there was only about 10 of us maybe there in person. Also, the Film Society is still holding showings right now. Obviously, it's a lot fewer people. And I think that the capacity of Strosacker Auditorium right now is around 80-something students, which is very small considering what Strosacker normally can hold. But they still do their weekly showings every weekend. I've been 2 or 3 times because it's, a real easy and cheap way to go get outside of your dorm for a little bit, because so much of life on campus right now is staying in your dorm.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else? How about student groups? I know you're in the Steel Bridge team. You're in a sorority. Are you guys able to meet? Is the Steel Bridge team able to practice?
Yeah, so I'll start with the Steel Bridge team. All of our general meetings are over Zoom. However, the bridge still needs to be fabricated. So there is still fabrication happening, which has to happen in person. I believe right now people are just going in and either just by themselves or in groups of two and working with a ThinkBox employee to build the bridge that way, so that we're not all meeting together to build the bridge, which actually is generally how we do build the bridge. It's usually groups of two people that go in on their own time and fabricate together. But other than fabricating in ThinkBox maybe once or twice a week, all of our meetings are over Zoom. And then for the sorority, pretty much everything is over Zoom. I would say about half of our members are not on campus right now. So we've got people all over the world. Honestly, we have some chapter members who can't even come to chapter because they're 12 hours behind us. And, what would be a chapter meeting every Sunday at noon is midnight for them. So they're not really able to come to our meetings. We record it so that they can watch it later anyway. But we've done a lot of, it's been really difficult, honestly, because so much of the sorority and fraternity experience is activities that happen in person, but we've really done our best to program in ways where we can still virtually see each other. We've also been doing smaller things such as like a pen pal system, and we're doing like a virtual Secret Santa where we're sending each other little gifts for Christmas. We would normally do that in person. But yeah, it's I think because we had the summer to prepare for what would be an entirely virtual semester, the ideas that some of the chapters have come up with or just student groups in general, to make this virtual experience as beneficial to their members as possible it's been a lot of creativity, that's for sure.
Emma, are the fraternity houses open at all with reduced living, or are they closed up?
As far as I know, they're all open. I believe most of them are about half capacity right now, but they are, as far as I know, they are all still open. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious as to if you have a sense of how the student body as a whole feels about all the ramifications of the rules and just kind of what's happening with masks and all that. I realize that because there are rules that have to be followed, people generally, I would expect, although you can comment on that, would be following it. But I'm just kind of curious as to what the undercurrent is when people get together and talk about these things. Are they all convinced that this is real science, or as scientists and engineers, our nature a lot of times is to be skeptical of things unless we can actually prove things. We have hypotheses, we go out and we experiment and we try to prove. And there's an awful lot of publicity about all the positive things that indicate mask wearing, but you get very little publicity out of a lot of the scientific studies. I've noticed, I've become a student of that. There's an awful lot of literature out there that says there's more harm than good out of wearing masks for viruses. But nobody talks about that. And I'm just kind of curious what the student body thinks about that.
Yeah, I think originally when we saw all the regulations that the university was going to have us under, especially for those living in campus housing, at first students were very discouraged, very more so the sense like, I'm coming back to school so I can see my friends, and now you're telling me I can't see my friends, and worried about what that would do for their mental health. So a good number of students did change their living plans to live off campus where they would have less restrictions on them. However, very early in the year, seeing what's happened at some of the other schools where they went back with very little, if any, sort of restrictions and rules in place, and COVID cases just rising so rapidly that they had to completely shut down and send everybody home in a matter of a week. I believe that what I've experienced, at least, the tone on campus is very much we're very lucky to be here. We know that half of the student body, all of the sophomores and juniors, weren't even allowed to come back to campus. So anybody who is on campus knows that it's a privilege to even be one of the 2 classes that are allowed on campus right now. And also, every one of us has friends at a university that from what we can tell, is probably in a worse situation than us. It's been really nice to see. I feel like CASE has really excelled at the way that they've tried to control COVID. It's concerning that our cases are rising right now, honestly, but comparatively, we're still doing much better than some of my other friends at other universities would be. So the general consensus is that what the university has put in place is working, is just to keep us as safe as possible, and that we want to follow the rules as much as possible because we want to be here as much as possible. Right now there's this air of not even being sure whether or not we're going to be here next semester. And even though I'm not personally going to be here next semester, there is a concern that it might go completely virtual and that everybody will have to move back home again. So we've, especially in the last couple of weeks, as cases have risen, have gotten like social gatherings, I believe, from what I've seen, have gotten a lot less, as we know that we're going to go home and we're going to see our families. We don't want to infect our families, obviously. And we also know that there's a very big possibility that we might not be this lucky next semester as well. It will just depend how this last couple months of the year turn out.
Thank you for that. That was great to hear that perspective.
Anyone else? One of the things I was wondering, Emma, has anything positive come out of the pandemic? Do you see anything about hybrid school that kind of works and you think it might last?
Yeah. So personally, the reason I'm able to go on co-op next semester at all is because of the pandemic. I do have one class left that I have to take in order to graduate. And if that class was not being offered virtually, I would still have to be on campus next semester. So there is a lot more flexibility with the ways in which students can do other activities in their life while also still being a full-time student, because they don't have to sit in the classroom and physically be there for the lectures. Additionally, I'm currently in my senior capstone project class right now. And because of the virtual format, we've been able to invite so many different people from everywhere across the country to come talk to us in our class, because all they have to do is sign on to a Zoom link and then they're there and we can talk to them and ask them whatever questions about the civil engineering industry that we would like to. In the past, any guest speaker would have to be somebody from Northeast Ohio. And while that's a great perspective to get, we've been able to have guest speakers from all over, which has been really beneficial as well, because we know that not every student is going to stay in Northeast Ohio after graduation. So that's the benefit that I've enjoyed the most, is just getting a lot more perspectives, because it's so much easier for people to come visit classes.
That's a good benefit. That's a great benefit. Okay. Anybody else have a question for Emma?
Yeah, Emma, I've got a question. This is Joe Fakel. My question is, do you find school to be more or less stressful? And do you feel like you learn as much as you would if you were on campus?
That's an interesting question, because I honestly feel like it's a different level of stress, because it's a different type of stress, maybe is the better way to put it. Like nothing compares to the stress that you feel when you're sitting in a classroom surrounded by your peers taking a really difficult exam, especially compared to now exams are proctored through an online software and it's just you alone in the quiet of your room taking an exam. It's personally a little bit lower stress, in my opinion, just as my type of test taker. But it's also so much more difficult to keep yourself motivated right now. Because for me personally, I know I'm supposed to stay within my room and my apartment as much as possible. But when I get done with a class and I'm sitting at my desk and I see my bed right next to my desk, I don't want to keep doing work. I want to lay down and take a nap. So it's a lot more difficult to be motivated when you don't have the walk to class, you don't get to see your peers, you don't get to have the face-to-face interaction with your professors that you're used to. But it might just be based on the classes I'm taking, but I do feel like I'm learning just as much as I was in the classroom. I know that that's different for people who are taking laboratory classes right now. I don't have any labs right now. But I think that because we had the summer to strategize and adapt for this, that we've really gone into this semester in the best possible scenario.
Great. Well, Thank you, Emma. Good luck to you, and we can't wait to welcome you to the Case Alumni Association.
Thank you. Thank you.